massive planer in the shop, I can use a somewhat abbreviated milling technique. First thing I'm going to do is find the cup side of the board and put it down on the bench. My bench is flat, and I just feel that, does it register stable on the bench? And it registers perfectly stable until I get down here, and it starts to move around. I've got a little bit of a twist, but I've got nothing down here. So this is relatively flat. I've just got a little high corner, and this is my high corner. So I'll flip it over, and I just use a lumber crayon to mark out the high corner. Well, here's the thing. These boards are a little oversized, and we know the fastest way to flatten a board is with a saw. So I can check this, and I've got a full 70 inches. I only need 65 inches. So come in and mark 65, and I bet you if I saw this little section off, I'm going to have even less of that twist. It may be gone altogether, and I can go straight to the planer. I'll bring the board back. I'll check. I got nothing. It is registering perfectly solid on the bench top, which tells me if I take it over to my planer, it's going to register solidly on the planer bed so that I can get a flat face here, flip the whole thing over, use this now as the reference surface, and plane the other side. So in this instance, I didn't have to do any planing to get this board flat. Now that's not entirely true. Right here is a plane section you may be able to see. There was a knot here, a raised section. I tackled that with a block plane just to drop that down a little bit. Same thing here, to drop that down a little bit. And on this face, there's a knot right here that was raised, and there's a knot right here that was raised pretty significantly. And I did some block plane work to knock those down. Otherwise, I would still have a fair amount of wobble here. So the key is not necessarily to grab your foreplane and start traversing the entire board, but spot plane it. Identify the topography of the board, where those high spots are, and just tackle those until you get it registering firmly. Then you can take it to the planer. Here is my milled board. You can see this #2 common walnut's got all kinds of, quote, defects in here, but look at that lovely curl. Spiral cutter head did a great job on that, left that knot, and I've got a good plain and flat surface. All right, this board is a little bit different. I tested it for flatness and I cut it to length to remove a lot of it, but I'm pretty stable, but I've still got a little bit of wobble, a little bit of twist. Like the last board, I'm very stable. Not completely, but very, very close to stable down here. And good to the middle, and just a little bit of twist down here. So this is going to be my high side. My high corner, rather. And I'm just going to put some hash marks on here. Help me remember. Pardon the sound of the sump pump in the background. I'm in a torrential downpour right now. I put these marks here, frankly, because sometimes I'm just an idiot, and when I flip it over, I get things mixed up. When you come back to planing, it's just a good indicator of the topography you need to move. Now, I'm pretty certain that just removing a little bit of this corner is probably not going to be enough. Let's just give it a shot. And I'll kind of probe the board with my fingertips here, and you'd be surprised what you can actually feel. You see, I definitely got a high spot right in here. And the wobble, the twist rather, is not so much that I feel like I've got to remove a whole bunch of stuff. So I've actually lightened up my cut on my foreplane here. Definitely a high spot in there. Alright, let me see how that goes. I have a feeling there's some other issues in the middle of the board that might cause it to rock a little. I'll tell you why I feel that way in just a second, as soon as I confirm that suspicion. Alright, that's pretty dang stable. I don't have the rock here anymore, but I do have a little bit. You remember before I said it was not quite as stable as I want it down on this end, and that's an indication that I've got a little bit of a hump in the middle. See, I'm rock solid down here, pretty good from here, but when I push down, I'm rocking ever so slightly. And just the way it was twisting and rocking about on me before, I could feel a little bit of kind of a fulcrum point in the middle. So when I removed that high corner, it removed the twist, but it actually slightly accentuated that high spot in the middle that's creating that little fulcrum, that seesaw action. So this is one of those instances where I can really, again, probe the board with my fingers, and I can really feel the high spot in here. This is definitely causing a problem. And just go around and mark those high spots just by hand. You also can take your foreplane and traverse the board, and you can look at the size of the shaving, the size of the plane track you left, and it will tell you a lot about the topography as well. But because I've got a pretty noticeable high spot here, I think that just removing this will fix my problems. Board this heavy, I really don't need that tail vise. It's staying put all on its own. Notice I'm clearing the bench top. I don't want errant shaving or whatever to throw off the reading I'm getting off my flat bench top. Okay, dead solid. Dead solid. So that high spot in the middle was creating that little fulcrum. So now I'm good to go. This is actually, originally was a 12-quarter board. It's a little scant 12-quarter. It's closer to 11-quarter. And because it's so thick, because it's so beefy, I can get away with cups and bows underneath, although I don't have much of one here. One of the previous boards I ran through had a bow underneath. Because the board is so thick, it's really strong, and the feed rollers and the planer can't flex it flat like you could on a 4-quarter board or something like that. With 4-quarter and sometimes with some 8-quarter, you have to be a little bit pickier. You've got to really go for a flat surface. This is not going to flex. I've got way too much strength here. So just recognize that working some of these thicker boards can actually give you some shortcuts. And cup and bow and everything, it rides perfectly stable on the bed. Obviously, twist is the big thing we've got to focus on removing. After a couple hours of milling, I've got all of my boards milled up, and they're not to final dimension. I'm going to glue up the panels, and because I've got a 20-inch capacity on this planer, I can actually glue up these into 2 separate panels. I'll plane them again, and then I'll do the final glue up, and then I'll hand plane that to finish. But obviously I wanted to stabilize some of these knots. Really not spending a lot of time to mill these boards, but they look fantastic. They're going to look even better with a hand plane finish when I'm done.